This week on JTV, we'll teach you the secrets behind the European hand-tied bouquet, a perfect flower accent for your next party or special occasion. A hand-tied bouquet is a great way for us to give flowers to someone else, but those flowers themselves can also have a specific meaning. Let's take a look at the floral fan deck. I've selected a few flowers today, and we'll just see what those flowers themselves mean if we gather them all together. Let's look at the foliages here first. We have Galix leaves that we'll use, which means truth or surprise. And let's look at our seeded eucalyptus. Let's see, it says complete cover. So it's a complete cover for our truth. That's our seeded eucalyptus, like this. And of course, truth with our Galix leaves. Now let's look at the flowers. We've got Gerbera daisies, whose meaning is pretty and strong. That's our Gerbera daisy. And we've also used hyacinth, which means sport or game. Young love, rashness. The pink one specifically means play. And we've got some heather in there. The heather means good luck. So you're starting to get the idea of how we could take different types of products and use them together to make a hidden meaning. That's the way that the hand bouquet started out. They were actually called nosegays in the early 16th century, and people would use them and gather them up, number one, to help keep their nose fresh, and also at the same time to be able to give meanings back and forth. It wasn't uncommon in Victorian times for a gentleman to send a bouquet to a woman that had a special meaning, and she would reply with another bouquet that had a similar meaning. So it's a fun way for us to use the floral fan deck, whether you have the paper one, like this, that you can get from the John Henry Company, or whether you're using the one on the UBloom site. So creating our bouquet today, we've got a couple things to do ahead of time. It's always important to get ready to create a hand-tied bouquet. And the way that we get ready is to clean our floral product. So we're going to gather that floral product and clean it up. Now, I'm thinking our bouquet is probably going to stand about this tall. So I want to make sure that the stems that we're using are that tall as well. So we'll strip our heather. The reason that we remove all the foliages on the product is so that we can utilize it when we're putting it together as a hand bouquet and the stems go together closely like that. If we have material that's inside there, we bind all that material up, and because the air can't get to it, it could be detrimental to the flowers themselves. So clean, stripped product is very important. If we're working with something like this hyacinth, we'll remove the leaves on the outside so that we can get down to that stem on the inside. If we use our knife, we can just kind of slide that down and remove the remnants of the rest of the leaves that are on the bottom. You'll notice that I'm using a hook blade today. I like to use the hook knife when I'm removing foliages because it's easier to clean the stems. You'll also see that I've got my flowers laid into different areas. So I have a pile of each one. All my heather's going to be together, all of my Gerbera daisies will be together, all of my hyacinth together. I'm keeping them all separate. You'll notice too that when we get down inside bulb plants like hyacinths, there may be dirt in the inside. And I'll sometimes just grab a paper towel and wipe that dirt off the outside. Because we're going to display our hand-tied bouquet either in water, standing up on a table, or in a vase. We wouldn't want that dirt to discolor the water. Got some lily grass that we'll use too. I love the naked seeded eucalyptus. They call it naked because someone goes through and pulls all of the leaves off. But this is the normal berry that we would see on a seeded eucalyptus plant, but it would also be accompanied by little ribbon-like leaves, and someone's gone through and taken all that off. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth the trouble sometimes. Again, with our tulips, we'll remove those outer leaves, and I'll just remove the remnants of those using my hook blade knife. We've left a couple leaves towards the top. I'm using a mixed variety of flowers, but I could also make this out of one type of flower, or I could even make it out of just foliage alone. Got lots of different choices I can make when I'm creating a hand-tied bouquet. It's just the combinations of flowers that you like. You might ask your friend to help you pick out different varieties, or you might have some from the garden, or you might see something exceptionally pretty that you just decided today would be a good day to use that flower. We're also going to use a spray rose. This is the spray rose OMG, which stands for Oh My God, because it's so pretty, from Euphoria. And I'm separating those spray roses off to the side. And there's usually this one stem on the inside of the spray rose. That's the very first blossom that comes up, and they pull that off to make sure that all the other blossoms come on. I always get rid of that stem and just cut it away so that you don't see it and it looks like a rose is missing. Now, you may have seen me create hand bouquets before that are big size, little size, medium size, all sorts of different sizes, but we always use the same technique. The one that we're going to make today is a smaller sized one, but we use the exact same techniques that we've used before. The key to this is we'll be creating it in between my thumb and index finger. I use this as the vase or the placement of where I'm going to put those flowers. We'll start with our center of our spray rose, and we're going to put that into my hand so that fits inside our vase. Imagine this as being a vase where you're holding the flowers. My next placement goes at a 45-degree angle and on top of the last stem that I put in my hand. So I always put it in on top, I always put it to the right, and I always put it at a 45-degree angle. Every flower placement that I'm going to put into my hand goes in that exact same way, at a 45-degree angle and on top of the last one. A 45-degree angle and on top of the last one. What this starts to do is cause a natural spiral in my hand. We use our gerbera at a 45-degree angle and on top of the last one that we placed. Now you'll notice that my Gerber head is kind of leaning off this way. I just got him today and I just put him in water, so he's got a little bit of a crook in his neck. But when I put him in the vase of water that we're going to have later on, his face will straighten up and grow towards the light. It's also the same attribute that tulips have. They grow towards the light and they also open and close. We call that phototropic, and that allows those flowers to open and close with the available light around them. 45-degree angle and on top. We'll add another rose. Now you're noticing that I have all of these different segments of flowers laid out, and that's so I can keep track of how many I've used and what flower should come next. So in this case, I'll add another rose. You can add a hyacinth, 45-degree angle and on top. It's time for us to add another piece of heather. Now if I want to, I can turn this in my hand too to add flowers in a different place. So I can take a gerbera and I still add it in at that 45-degree angle and on top. That keeps my spiral staying exactly the same and also keeps my flowers rotating in the same direction. I know we need one more Gerber here, so 45-degree angle and on top there, and we can pull it down inside here between those roses to hold it up. We'll add a tulip and another rose, our heather, and because we've stripped our stems, I can also adjust flowers. So if I want to come back in here and move that gerbera so that it's facing outwards, or if I want to turn this around and move that gerbera so that it's facing outwards, I have that ability. It all happened because I stripped these flowers down first. Having them nice and clean allows me to make those adjustments. I can also pull them up or down. So I can lower them or pull them up higher. I have that ability too because of cleaning off the stems. Now I'm going to add my seeded eucalyptus around the outside as a collar. We're actually going to have two different types of collars on our hand bouquet today. So I'm putting this around first. And you'll notice that I'm rotating my hand so that I get this on the outside all the way around. So now we have that great texture of the seeded eucalyptus all the way around the bouquet. The next thing I want to do is add some of the lily grass. And I'll add that here. I'm going to turn it, and I'll add two more pieces over here. And I'll add two pieces finally on this side. Now we're going to let those stick up for the time being until I add my other collar. But we're going to come back and do something with those as a final trick. Now the Galex leaves, you'll notice, actually form a great collar. So I can just add those facing outwards all the way around the outside. Now you'll notice I can pick up one or two at a time. I can add bundles of flowers together. It's okay to add more than one stem. Galex leaves look great in arrangements, and at the same time, they have a very geometric pattern, and they're very cost effective. That means they're inexpensive. So I can add quite a few to the outside of my hand bouquet. I want to make sure that I have good density down inside there. The dark magenta color really adds a great contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and use this whole bunch. That's about 25 stems. The layering that occurs with that looks wonderful. So, with our lily grass, we'll pull our end down and slip it underneath my thumb. We'll pull this one down and slip it underneath my thumb. We'll pull these down so that we start to have little loops around the outside. That's great because these start to encircle our flowers. And because those loops are encircling that, visually that creates more importance to the flowers that are falling underneath. So, if we're happy with where everything is, we're ready to tie this off. I'm going to use bind wire. And bind wire is a paper-covered wire. It comes in a bundle like this. And what we do is we dig inside and find the end and pull it out from the inside of the bolt, rather than undoing it out here. If we take off this tape, this thing's going to be a giant mess and we'll never get to use the whole of it. So in this case, we pull it out from the middle. Now, we're going to use a nice long extension of it, about 12 inches long, and place it underneath my thumb. Then we bring that down against our stems and hold it there. Then we can wrap this around the outside. It works better for me to do it with this hand. So in this case, we're wrapping that around there, nice and tight. We want to make sure that it's snug. You can see how I'm creating a nice binding point. I'm also not making that binding point fat. I'm keeping it thin so that my stems can splay out of the bottom. We'll trim off the end of our bind wire and bring those two ends together and twist them tightly. So we're twisting those two ends together. I bring it back around a couple more times just for added security, and I tie it together in one more spot, just like a bread twisty. Trim off that end, and this can fold up there neatly. Now that holds our bouquet together nice and secure. Now here's the most fun part about creating a hand bouquet. We'll use a bypass cutters and we're going to cut the stems. So we gather the stems up tightly together with our hand, go in with our bypass cutters, and cut it straight. Then our stems are able to splay out. We're just going to tap it on the table. That makes it stand up. It's a great way for us to create something. It's very European and a fun way to create a freestanding bouquet. I want to put it in a bowl. Found this guy the other day. I just love it. It looks like a daisy, and it holds a shallow amount of water. My bouquet then stands in the center of that. So now it has water for a period of time. We could have this set on a table during a party or have somebody over for a little cup of coffee and have that on the table. It's a great way for us to present that. So, until next week, keep having fun with flowers.